welcome to the Love Positivism podcast. I'm your host, Shireen, and I'm the creator of Love Positivism. I'm here to help you on your spiritual and healing journey. I am a certified yoga and meditation teacher, a student of Chinese medicine, a doula, a Reiki practitioner, and a passionate, highly sensitive person. I want to use my knowledge to channel information and messages for you to grow on all levels. Hi, and welcome to this week's episode. I'm so grateful that you're here, and for everyone that has shared the podcast or just sent a review, thank you so much. It really helps me to spread the podcast and just makes me so happy that you're enjoying the episodes, and I truly wish that this podcast will help you on your journey of healing and growing on a spiritual level. And this week is so beautiful. We are starting off with this full moon in Pisces, and I have a guest this week that is a healer and that has worked with so many people with healing traumas and other energetic wounds, and her name is Monica Bey, and she's known as the healer in heels. So she's an energy healer and spiritual teacher, and she has a bachelor's degree in social science and is a certified life coach, Reiki master, and hypnotist. And she has also created this online university called Mystic University, a school for the spiritually gifted, where she helps you develop your gifts and yours on your spiritual path. And in this episode, we talk about soul purpose, we talk about what trauma is and how to heal trauma. We get into anxiety and depression, past life trauma, and also our lineage trauma, the trauma that has been passed on throughout our lineage. So this episode is beautiful to understanding all of these things on an energetic level. So I hope it really helps you on your path. And if you want to connect with Monica, you can find all of her links in the show notes. So just enjoy. Hi, Monica. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
So great to have you here. And I always start by asking, how do you stay mindful and present in your daily life?
Well, there's many things that I do to stay mindful and present in my daily life, but I think it first starts with my morning routine. I think morning routines are so important, and so I start my day with about an hour worth of morning routine, which includes meditation. It also includes mindfulness, and then also what I do after I meditate and just become mindful and get into that grounded space. I also do some affirmations and just reminding myself what I'm grateful for as well. I have a gratitude journal that I keep. So it's a kind of a big, long, drawn out process, but it definitely starts my day off right. And then, however you start your day is usually how the rest of your day will go. And then throughout the day, to keep myself mindful, I also just make sure that I don't allow distractions in. So I stay focused on whatever I'm doing to stay in the moment and be present and to show up with 100% of myself with whatever I'm doing.
That sounds wonderful. And I love morning routines, not just getting into everything at once, just having that still or something, or movement, but just having that sacred time with yourself.
Yes, because if you don't do that, then you just jump into the day, and then the day is about everyone else, not yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm super happy to have you here and that we've connected. And I love your story and your work. Maybe you can start by sharing with the listeners who you are and what you do and all of that.
Sure. Thank you. And again, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show. For me, who I am, I'm Monica Bey, also known as the Healer in Heels. And I am an energy healer and a spiritual teacher. And what I do is I also have a lot of spiritual gifts that I was born with. So I'm a natural psychic medium. I am a natural spiritual warrior. I'm a natural energy healer. I was born with that ability. And then, of course, I've, grown that over the years to advance it and make myself much stronger and more skilled at what I do. But what I do with everything, all of my skills and spiritual gifts, is I focus on taking people through life transformations. So helping people remove the things that are holding them back in life. And those things are always within yourself, not outside of yourself. So helping people remove those things that are holding them back in life, and then helping them build the life that they are here to have. Meaning that I focus on life purpose. Because I believe, one of the reasons why I decided when I started this business to focus on life purpose is one of the reasons is because it is my life purpose to help others ignite the light within themselves so that they can then achieve their purpose. But also, I believe that life purpose is the only way that you can find true fulfillment in life, like 100% fulfillment. And that's because unfulfillment comes from the soul. When you're unfulfilled, your soul isn't happy because it knows what it's here to do. It knows what it's supposed to be doing. And sometimes our conscious minds and our conscious actions are not in alignment with the soul's purpose. And so when you start to walk in your purpose, then you can start to reach that fulfillment and start striving. And it's always a journey. It's not a destination. But yeah, this is what I do. And one of the things that I focus on in taking people on this journey is healing them from the trauma. Because that's one of the things that, prevents you from accessing your true power and accessing your true greatness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And just did you always know your soul's purpose, or was that something that because you have a big background as well of doing something completely different, so I'm just curious how you discovered that.
So not at all. I did not always know my purpose. I wish when we were born, we were just kind of, even though it's crazy because I always say we know that all the knowledge that we need is within us, but it's like, that's nature's trick. That's the universe's trick. It's like you have everything you need, but it's really hard to access. So now we're going to make you jump through hoops to get to it. But yeah, so when I always knew I had spiritual gifts. And I didn't know that I didn't start developing those gifts until probably about my teenage years, because then I started to really understand them. Because, when I was younger, I knew I could heal. I knew that I just kind of knew things. I knew I was psychic. I didn't really know what to call it, but I knew, that I had those things. But it wasn't until my teenage years that I really started to understand it more and started to work with it. But then career happened. So I went to college. Decided I was going to be a lawyer. And so I started moving in that direction, ended up in business. That's a longer story, but we won't get into that. But I ended up in business, kind of by accident. But I don't believe that there are really any accidents. I believe everything happens for a reason. And I can now see why I took this trajectory. But my trajectory has been, I got into business and ended up moving up very, very quickly in this publicly traded company. And I ended up being a vice president of a finance company for 13 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I had lots and lots of success, but then, what led me to discovering my actual purpose is I had to heal myself, which a lot of healers I find have that, similar kind of story. And so it's just very, very interesting. But that is how I ended up discovering my purpose, bringing myself back, into the spiritual space and reminding myself of my power, because my body had started breaking down on me. I ended up extremely stressed out. Didn't realize it was stress at the time because all the doctors are running tests, have no idea what's wrong with me. I have partial paralysis. I wasn't able to use my arms or my hands most of the time. I wasn't able to walk most of the time. And I was still in my 20s. So this was very horrifying to me at the time. So, but I ended up remembering, it's crazy how when we are stuck in the middle of something, we forget our power and we just get stuck in that. And so I was stuck in that for about 2 years before I remembered, oh yeah, duh, I can heal. Why don't I go back to that? And so I ended up healing myself. And then that really spawned an entire new awakening within me. And now I'm here. Fast forward.
Oh my God. Yeah, that sounds a lot like my own journey, actually, with, yeah, just as you said, like being like so focused on like what to achieve on a physical level. And I was also in business and marketing and all of that. And then, yeah, due to like stress and things like that, like learning how to heal and to ground and then finding that purpose, that's when most of like the healing and the enlightenments came as well, when it was like really tough and the body was saying so much. When we start listening to the body, we understand if we're on the right path or not. So I think that it's a great story, because I think sometimes we think that to be successful is to have like this walk a path that many have, and it maybe may or may not have worked out for them, but we don't know if it's going to be the right path for us. So but it's really hard if we don't get taught very early on to be open-minded and discovering our inner worlds to do that, because then we only have the external world telling us what our purpose is, right?
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I focus so much on purpose. And what I actually do is I've invented a process that I call the soul revelation method. You're going to love this, because I was excited when I invented it. But what it is it's a way for me to tap into a person's subconscious mind and get below that, so deeper than that, and get all the way down to the soul level. And then I'm able to, through this process, the soul reveals itself to the person and starts oftentimes speaking out of the person's mouth. And we're able to access all the information that the soul knows. So, everything that it's willing to impart anyway. Sometimes it's not always willing to give you everything, because some things we aren't supposed to know yet. But as far as purpose, your gifts, why you're here, what you need to do moving forward, some more things about your life, about even past lives and things like that. We can get all of that information from the soul. And I do it this way because even though I'm psychic, I tell my clients always this, I'm psychic. I can look inside of someone and say, okay, here's your purpose. But there's going to be a big difference in your understanding of that and taking that in if you get it from inside of yourself versus me telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because of that outside, that it's just a different experience. So when you get it from inside of yourself and you've experienced your soul coming forward and saying this, then 100% that is true. It's unequivocal. Yeah. And it's very enlightening.
Definitely. And I would love to talk to you about trauma that you mentioned before as well, how that, because we can, like when people hear the word, it can feel like trauma has to be something really big and something huge, but it can be so many different things. So how do you see trauma, and how did you learn from your own experiences?
Yeah, well, one of the things, so I was patient zero for myself. So I learned so much. I really attribute a lot of my amazing healing results that I get today to me being patient zero, because I had so many things going on that I had no idea that I had going on until I really, really dove deep within myself to see it all. And what I find with myself and with my clients is that oftentimes the traumas that are invading our lives and really affecting every single thing that we do are so small. Not that they're small in impact, they're very big in impact, but they're small in our minds, because one thing I always say is trauma is in direct relation to the person experiencing the trauma at the time, not the person looking back on it. And I'll explain what I mean by that is because as adults, we can look back on something that happened when we were 5 years old and we're like, oh, that was no big deal. But to a 5-year-old, the person experiencing the trauma, a person yelling at you can be very traumatic. You stubbing your toe can be traumatic. Getting in trouble in school can be a traumatic moment. Getting embarrassed can be a traumatic moment. And we all have experienced things like that, right, in childhood. And so, definitely. And then there's also obviously the obvious traumas, the abuse, the just really negative things that have happened to you. Bullying, that's very traumatic to people. And that's another thing that a lot of people overlook is the bullying, because I noticed that people who, they may come to me at 40 years old and they've been carrying these things all their life and they're not sure why they're repeating these patterns in their life. These patterns keep repeating, they keep self-sabotaging, they keep doing these things. And when I look inside of them, because the way that I heal, I use my psychic ability when I heal people. And with my psychic ability, I'm able to see inside of people and actually see themes of their life that have played out, that they're still holding on to. And I'll describe those things to them. So when I see these scenes, and oftentimes I'll see a bullying scene when they were either a teenager or, really young. And to them, they're past that and they just kind of swept it under the rug. So to them, they think that they're over that and that's not a big deal. But that's really the root cause of the reason why they're self-sabotaging, because the bullying, just to give an example, the bullying can make someone feel small and make someone feel unwanted, unworthy, unloved. And when you have that as a foundation and you've really internalized that event, you've internalized that trauma, that becomes your foundation upon which everything else is built in your life. And so this is why you're afraid of your greatness, you're afraid of failure, you're afraid of love and relationships. And so you self-sabotage, you find yourself in those types of patterns. So that's just an example.
Yeah. And when like on a energetic level, what is the trauma doing within our body? Like what is happening with the energy? Do you see it?
Yeah. So what it is oftentimes energetically, I love that you asked that question, because this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is that when we experience trauma, the soul oftentimes separates. What happens is it separates, and it's almost like if you picture kind of a piece of wood with a little splinter, right, or shaving, that splinter can come all the way off, or it can just stay kind of separated. Oftentimes it comes all the way off. And so when it comes all the way off, that you have a separate piece of your soul that's still inside of your body. And sometimes it actually leaves the body. And that's when you have to get into shamanic soul retrievals. But most of the time I find that it stays within the body. And when it stays within the body, it becomes its own little entity inside of you. It's almost like split personality. It's not clinically a split personality, but what it is, it's a different version of you stuck inside of you, frozen in that time and that fear. And those parts, I call them parts inside of you. And those parts inside of you start to work against you. But they're not working against you because they want to harm you. They're working against you because the only thing that they are concerned with is they don't want to be hurt again. They and safety. And a lot of times when we, just using the example of self-sabotage, a lot of the times when we self-sabotage, we're self-sabotaging because subconsciously and energetically, that part inside of us wants to stay safe. How do we stay safe? We keep everything the same. So we sabotage anything that is change. And if the trauma had to do with love or worthiness, as we start to get close to someone and we have those self-confidence issues, because that part of you, that energetic part inside, that piece of your soul that broke off, still is feeling all those emotions because it's never been healed. And so it will start to push away those loved ones. It'll start to, when you start to get into a relationship, it'll start to push that away. And that's when you get that self-sabotage. And again, that's just a small example. It can really wreak havoc in so many different areas of your life. But also energetically, even if you don't have the soul split off, what happens to that trauma is it stays within your chakras, it stays within your energy system, and it builds up and starts to create blockages. And those blockages over time start to become more physical, hardened, solid matter. And that's when you start to have physical issues. And what I've found is that it takes about 2 years on average between the time you experience a trauma to the time you start to see that trauma actually affecting your life on a daily basis. Yeah.
That's very interesting, because then it's also makes it harder to identify what
exactly.
the root is, right? Because if you just start feeling, sometimes it can feel like let's say if a couple of years have went and you're carrying this trauma, it can be a stressful situation or something that triggers it. But it goes much deeper than that, because we're like built to be able to survive traumas as well. Otherwise, it would be like so many things, and we would get overloaded. But I'm also thinking about when working with clients, have you seen like certain type of traumas lead to certain type of like symptoms? It can be emotional, physical. Do you see a pattern, or is it very individual how the trauma is manifesting?
Well, there are a lot of patterns, but I've also seen some very interesting, weird ones too. that I always see when I heal people. Not always, but a lot of times, I'll heal people and see something I haven't seen before, because it's so many different variations of how something can affect someone, and it really depends on how you've internalized it. But I'll give you a couple of examples that are clear, very common patterns. So if someone is having an issue with fibroids, because that's one of the things that I get a lot of women with fibroid issues. That's always going to be an issue with your sacral chakra and some type of trauma dealing with sexuality, sex. Usually it has to do, I've always found actually 100% of the time that it has to do with something, some type of sexual trauma. That doesn't necessarily mean sexual abuse, but that could also be trauma dealing with, relationships that they had where they were feeling inferior sexually. Or things like that, and like also with their reproductive system as well, feeling less than. For some people who may have issues having children, sometimes that is a result of a sexual trauma as well. Yeah, and then another example of, say, someone with thyroid issues. That is always going to be, I found it 100% of the time as well, that it is an issue with the throat chakra, of course, but an issue with self-expression. People who have been either limiting themselves or have been limited, have been quieted, have been suppressed significantly throughout their life. And it usually starts with a trauma and then just continues from there.
Oh. And is that both for the overactive and underactive thyroid? Is it? Do you see the same? It's still the throat chakra, but it's like one is more hyper and one is more Okay.
Yeah. The same thing. When I look into people, that is one of the first things I do is find the root cause of their problems, and then I wipe it out with my healing techniques. But then once we wipe it out, then we have to actually heal the physical. So whatever the physical issue is, I first discover the root cause, get that energy out of there, and then because with that energy gone, once you uproot the root, then you just have to fix the damage that was done, and then you're good. So that's what I do. But then also to answer your question about the emotional issues, so people that have depression, there's such a wide range of traumas that lead to that, but it's always going to be because of some traumas that you have deep within, whether they were, a lot of times I find that the traumas are from childhood, but sometimes they can be from early adulthood, but usually from childhood that have been carried on and carried on. And sometimes it's something so simple, like I said, being yelled at by a parent, and it was like the worst yelling that they've ever done at the time. And you may be 6 years old, 7 years old, and it's so traumatic to you. And you think the world is over at the time. But as an adult, you're looking back, you're like, that was nothing, But that is the root cause of your depression issue, or your anxiety. And why you fear, being in crowded spaces, or why you fear being in front of people, because you're worried what people are going to, think about you, because maybe something happened, in the past where you felt embarrassed or something like that. And so there's just so many of those things, and they create, depression. Another root cause of depression that I've seen often is just unhappiness of the soul. And it's for people that are seriously blocked and are not at all connected with their selves. And so when you're not connected with yourself, your soul is not really able to, and your spirit guides are not really able to connect with you and give you that guidance. So it's like you're just flying freely with no with no direction, except for the direction that you create, which a lot of times is not going to be the direction that that it wants to be going, because your soul incarnated into your body for a reason, and it's here to complete several missions. And it does actually get very frustrated when when you're not listening.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And how do you think that if you can, like, if you have your clients, do you also see those that maybe even maybe the trauma hasn't, like, they have suppressed it so much that it's not even coming up to the surface? Because I mean, I'm thinking about different years of our lives. Let's say if we're in our 20s, maybe we can like suppress it, and then maybe it bubbles up around 30 or like 50s. It can be, I'm thinking about the development of the different things that manifests from the trauma. Do you see that?
Yeah. So the thing is, the more you suppress it, the more it bubbles up, and it depends on how strong it is too. If the energy that you internalized at the time of that trauma was just very mild, and then after that trauma you didn't have that much more go on that you've held on to, that much negativity that you've held on to, then it's going to take much longer before it actually starts wreaking havoc in your life. But if you have two people, just using a scale, for some equilibrium, if you have two people that experienced the same level of trauma, meaning that the energy is just as dense, just as dark, just as strong within themselves, and you have one person that is suppressing it more than the other, the person suppressing it more is actually going to have more symptoms. Yeah. Because the more you push something down, the more it bubbles up. Because it can't be pushed down so much when it has a force. It's about force and momentum against and strength against our own strength of pushing things down and just pushing past things. As the more we ignore something, the more it rears its ugly head.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
And just, that's one of the things, maybe sometimes when we're thinking about healing and enlightenment and all of that, we think that everything should be so light and beautiful and easy. And it can be, at times it feels very blissful, but it's also like when you start working and you're on your spiritual path, like you choose the path of understanding yourself as a soul, then these things also come up, because you agree to like work on a soul level and work on an energetic level. These things have to come up, otherwise you're like doing very like surface work. So just
Mm-hmm.
having like, it's shadow work, right? Just working,
Oh,
it's a
definitely.
type of shadow.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's
yeah,
literally a shadow.
yeah,
It
it's
is, when
like,
I see it energetically, it is literally
mm,
oftentimes a lot of shadows inside of
mm,
us. And yeah, so that is the way that we have to face, and that is the point of, that's why we have yin and yang, and that is the
mm,
point of facing our shadows and darkness, is because the darkness
yeah,
is there in order to show us our light and vice versa. And so we can't
yeah.
ignore one or the other, or else we will not be a whole being.
No, that's so true. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's very important. And I think we have to, we're not always prepared maybe to do that. Not now people know, but it's like otherwise, if no one has told us that, then
I
it can
know.
become shocking as well, like what
Yeah.
can come up. And I'm also thinking about traumas, something that's come up for me with this full moon as well, because we have a beautiful full moon today,
Uh-huh.
is that because it's a Pisces full moon, I think it has really lightened up our dreams. So I
Hmm.
think many people are dreaming intensely, and for me, something that came up was like, I think it's a dream of a past life. So I'm thinking about past lives as well, and
Hmm.
how the traumas of, if we haven't dealt with that trauma from past lives, can it show up here as well,
Oh,
do you think?
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm going to give you an example, really, really great example. So I'm also a hypnotist. And
Yeah.
so I do like past life regressions as
Yeah.
well. And this is many years ago, but I was doing a past life regression on a client, and she hadn't told me at the time that she had a fear of, that she had a phobia of bridges. We never,
Mm.
because she came to me for something else. But she also had a phobia of bridges, and it was only a particular kind of bridge that she would go
Mm.
across, and she would have like panic attacks, and never knew
Oh.
why. And
Mm.
so, again, I didn't know this at the time. So we proceed to go into the past life regression, and I always allow the soul to bring the past life that they need to see right now. So that's the
Mm.
one I allow them to go to, because, as you know, we've been here many, many times. So there's many past lives
Yeah.
from. So I
Yeah.
just, state the intention before we start, to allow the past life that this person most needs to see right now to show through. And it was
Mm.
so interesting, because when we did the past life regression, she was a man in some
Mm.
other country, but had actually committed suicide off of a bridge.
Mm.
Yes. and
Yeah.
and the bridge was exactly the kind of bridge that
Oh.
that she was afraid of going across, and she never knew, because nothing ever happened to her in this lifetime that had to do with a bridge. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so there were a lot of amazing
Mm.
things that happened in that session, but that was one of the, that's just a great example of how, something had happened. So in that past life, she had committed, he, at the time, it was a he, had
Mm.
committed suicide off this bridge, left his wife and daughter behind, and immediately, like, really regretted doing that. So that was the trauma. It wasn't the trauma of death. It was the trauma of, oh my God, I just did this. I ended my life. I failed in my mission, and I left my wife and children behind. And then, the soul kind of stayed around to watch what was happening too, and saw all the pain and sorrow that he had caused. And so this created the trauma within the soul that it didn't fully heal from. And so when that soul incarnated into her body, it kept that and brought that with him. Yeah.
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 Yeah, and that explains so much. I'm thinking about phobias. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I've all my life, I still haven't worked on that, but I've had like this spider phobia. I can remember it since I was like 5. I didn't even have like there was no reason why I would be scared of them at 5 years old. I just saw one, and then since then I've been like really scared of them.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that that's from a past life then, if there wasn't anything in
must.
life. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's what I always find. If someone has a phobia and they can't attribute it to anything in this life, it's from a
Mm.
past life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm also thinking about when it comes to trauma, because I'm thinking about also our lineage and our forefathers, like in the physical body, because we have that physical DNA.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the traumas that has been passed down as well. Do you see that?
Yes, definitely. There is cellular memory, and that cellular memory is an energetic etching within the life force energy. And so what happens is, I'll explain this a little. I'm a bit of a science nerd, so I study physics a lot. But I'm just going to explain this as easy as I can. So when we part of our chi, we have chi, life force energy, prana in our body, and we have different kinds of chi. So the kinds of chi that we have that we get from our parents is the chi from each one of our parents in their chromosomes that come together and create us, and start our embryo. And then those cells divide and multiply, and then we become who we are. But what started that and what creates that life within those cells is the chi from both of our parents. So within that chi is a coding. And in that coding is what we call that cellular memory. And that is every trauma that is still within them that they've experienced. And oftentimes, because we're not taught to heal, we're not taught to even look within, it's coming where, obviously we are elevating as a species right now in terms of our consciousness. So that's more prevalent now. But when I was a kid, no one was talking about this stuff. And so, we have ancestral trauma as well from generations ago that never were healed. And then it gets passed on to the next generation, never got healed. And so by the time it gets to you, it's this very potent negativity that is, within your entire energy system, because your chi is everything. And so, so that's a big component to your chi. Your chi also comes from two different other places, and that is the food that you eat and the air that you breathe. And so those three components together make your master chi that is, that is within your body. But yeah, that cellular memory, that trauma can just be within you. And then, that's also energy that has to be removed. And oftentimes when I'm healing people, I will see that. Not all the time, but I do see it. Yeah.
And when you're working with someone that with their trauma, how is the spirit world? Are they helping you out? Like, are you getting like? Because since you are a healer, it's not only that you work on a mental and physical. It's like healing on energetic level and on a soul level. Like, how in your work, how do you take all of that in?
Well, what I do is I have my own healing modality that I've created, and it is a mixture of, I'm a Reiki master, but I actually do very little Reiki. And the reason why is because Reiki itself is very powerful and strong, but it's a little for the results that I like to get. And I do have 100% success rate. Which I'm very proud to say, because it's very hard to say in this industry. But the reason why I have 100% success rate is because of this system that I've created. And so Reiki is a little too permissive. And I say that to mean that when you send Reiki energy to the body, it's up to the body how it wants to handle that energy. And so I say it's permissive because it's you have to have permission from the body, you have to have permission from the spirit and all of that. And sometimes the body and the spirit just are not ready to heal. And it's because of sometimes those parts inside that are working against it. And so there are things within our bodies that are saying, no, we're not going to heal, even though consciously you really want to heal. Sometimes your spirit is saying no. And so I have developed ways to circumvent that to make you heal anyway. So, yeah. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to rely on what the spirit and the body wants, because it doesn't always do what's best for you, to be honest, just because of these things. And so my healing modality has heavy influences in shamanism, Native American and African shamanism, and also Qigong, principles of Qigong. I use that a lot. I also use a lot of principles of physics and biology that I study very heavily. I also use a little bit of biokinesis, again, I have a lot of spiritual gifts, so I'm able to just tap in and kind of make things happen. I also am heavily influenced by ancient Egyptian healing arts as well.
Yeah, and can you tell me more about that? Because I was interested when I saw that, actually, the Egyptian healing arts.
Okay.
Like, what is that? Yeah.
Well, some of that I attained from research, and a lot of it actually I received directly from the universe. Oftentimes, I'm very clairsentient. I have almost all the clairs, but clairsentient is one of clairsentient and clairvoyant are my strongest ones. And oftentimes, I will just be in a meditation or not even meditating, just standing somewhere, and I'll like kind of automatically go into a trance and start receiving information and downloading information. And what happened with the ancient Egyptian healing arts is I was already researching things, but also information was just dropped into me on how to use different tools, how to attack different areas of the body to create that healing and to get the spirit and the soul and the body all in line together. And really a lot of it is about breath. And that is something that, the ancient Egyptians really, really were into. And it's interesting when you look at history, a lot of the ancient people were all separated in different areas of the world, right? But they're all doing the same thing, just calling it something different. Yeah. And that's the same for today too. I believe that most of the modalities are maybe doing subsets of different things, but everyone's kind of really focusing on the energy, and they may call it something different, but there are a lot of similarities. And so, yeah, the ancient Egyptian healing, it's just, we could do a whole show just on that because there's a lot, yeah. But yeah, a lot of it is breath work and focusing on the breath of life within us. And also, focusing on our ability to control and dictate our own energies and our own bodies and the bodies and energies of others if you feel guided to do so. So as a healer, I'm directing someone else's, energy and to get their body to do what I need it to do. And so that's coming from me. I also, to answer your question about the spiritual aspects or spirits and kind of other beings, I definitely work with their spirit guides. So oftentimes while I'm healing people, their spirit guides will come through, maybe an ancestor or something, or sometimes actual angels will come in and assist in the healing as well. And then I also am very connected to a lot of ancient Egyptian deities and just the universe itself. And sometimes I will just allow that massive energy, that source energy, to just come through me. And then oftentimes, especially if it's something that I may be new to healing, which at this point I think I've healed almost everything. But once in a while, someone comes to me with something that I haven't fully seen before, and so I just allow spirit to show me what to do, and it always works.
Wow.
Yeah,
sounds amazing, and it's in such an important work that you're doing with helping people, because when we start healing more and more, we also change the vibration of the world. Mm-hmm. So it's so important that we're doing this and that we're seeking out also help to overcome like traumas and anything that needs to be healed. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I love the work that I do because it just it brings me joy, and it's my purpose. And when I discovered my purpose, it was not all at once. It was in several phased kind of visions and trances. And like I said, I just sometimes am, just sitting somewhere, and all of a sudden I'll go into a big trance. And I'm also a channel. So sometimes, my spirit guy will come right through me and just start speaking out of my mouth and tell me what to do.
Yeah. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a gift. Yeah, definitely. I'm so happy for everything that you could share. I think it's going to help so many people. And do you have anything else that you would like to share right now?
I want to just a message to everyone that it's really important that you do look within and that you focus inward. If you're experiencing anything in your life, even if you're not, because oftentimes we have trauma that's affecting our lives and we don't really understand that. And we may be living happy lives, but there are certain parts of our lives that we're just ignoring because we're focused more on the happy parts. And it's good to focus on happiness. I always say choose happiness. Happiness is a choice. But it's also important to continually look within. And that's something I do in my morning routine every day is I look within to make sure that there's nothing. I don't even want any tiny little morsel of anything bubbling up because I know later that's going to affect me. So I wipe myself out every day. Yeah, because if you think about it, it's like a bucket. If you have mud that you keep putting in a bucket, it's eventually going to fill up. But if you clean that bucket every day, then it never has a chance to fill up and it never has a chance to start affecting you. So that's why it's important for self-care and really taking the time, for yourself. And if you have any traumas that are big traumas that you have, and that you've never dealt with, or you just think that you've moved past, but you haven't really gone inside to do any work, then I guarantee you it's still in there. And you need to either seek a healer like myself or, start healing yourself. It does take longer to heal yourself than it does just to go to a healer, but sometimes your journey is to heal yourself. And sometimes your journey is to get help, but then also learn how to heal yourself afterwards. And that's one thing that I teach people as well is how to heal themselves, because I don't want someone to have to rely on me for the rest of their lives to be well. I press that reset button for them basically, and then teach them how to maintain it from there to make sure that they don't end up back in the same space that they were. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And how can people connect with you? Is it through your website and Instagram?
Yes. So my Instagram is at The Real Monica Bey. And so Bey is spelled Bey. So at The Real Monica Bey. And then you can also find me on my website at monicabey.com. And also, I just want to mention that I did start a university called Mystic University, and it is a school for the spiritually gifted. And so if you feel like you have spiritual gifts and you would love to ignite those, develop those, and turn them into powerful tools so you can create positive change in the world, because your tools and your spiritual gifts are there for a reason, and they are actually there to help you achieve your purpose. So for people who feel that they might have some gifts, or first of all, everyone has spiritual gifts. So what I do is I teach people how to use their gifts and how to develop them into stronger tools. So if anyone is interested in that, and also healing, that is one of the things that we focus on at Mystic University is healing. You can go to mysticuniversity.net and sign up for the All Access Pass, because that is the best deal, because you have access to every single course on the platform, and I add new courses every month, and it's just amazing.
Wow. That's amazing. I'll check it out. And thank you so much. I'm going to link everything in the show notes as well.
Okay.
So if someone is listening, they can just click there as well.
Great.
And I want to thank you so much for being here today. I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
And I hope to connect with you soon again.
Yes, definitely. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has been as inspiring to you as it was for me when talking to Monica. I think it's a really interesting angle and view of how to deal with trauma and how that healing process could be for you. So really grateful that you're here, and if you want to connect with Monica for just a healing session or just working with her with your spiritual gifts or anything, you can just click the links in the show notes and you can connect with her. So let's just take a deep breath in together, in through the nose, and exhale out through the mouth. And namaste.